Here we have Armor Seal by General Finishes and Tru-oil by Birchwood Casey. Both are great finishes that I will be testing side by side on pieces of maple, pine, oak, sweetgum, and walnut, all of which I've sanded to 320 grit, and we'll start with the Armor Seal. I'll demonstrate the finishing process in real time during the first coat, and then I'll fast forward through the other coats and just show the results after each one. I'm basically going to be applying a series of very thin coats by wiping on a liberal amount of finish and then wiping the excess off with a dry cloth. This walnut is really soaking it up, so I'm going to add just a little bit more. Armor Seal is considered a wiping varnish. It's basically a polyurethane varnish that has been thinned enough with a solvent like mineral spirits, which makes it easy to apply with a cloth and easy to wipe off the excess as well. And there is coat number 1 of the Armor Seal on the walnut. Next, we'll apply the Armor Seal to a piece of sweet gum. This is a wood that stains and finishes very well, and I've enjoyed making decorative boxes with it. And again, we'll just wipe the excess off. Here we have a piece of red oak with its first coat of Armor Seal. Next is a piece of good old pine with its first coat of Armor Seal. And finally, we'll put a first coat of Armor Seal on this piece of maple. And now for the Tru-oil. And we'll start with this piece of walnut and work the finish into the wood the same way we did with the Armor Seal. It looks like it's going on darker, but it's actually just the lighting in this shot. As you'll see as we continue with this, the tones of these two finishes are very similar. I'm going to add a little extra here, just like we did with the Armor Seal. This wood is really soaking up the finish. And then wipe off the excess in the same way. And there is the first coat of both the Armor Seal and the Tru-oil. Of course, we'll do the same with the piece of Sweetgum. Tru-oil contains what Birchwood Casey calls a proprietary modified oil, which most sources agree is polymerized linseed oil, in addition to linseed oil and mineral spirits. But the ingredients are pretty secretive, so it's hard to know exactly what it's made of. Some sources say that it might contain an alkyd resin or a varnish resin of some type, along with some other drying agents. But the main ingredient seems to be polymerized linseed oil. And polymerization is a process of heating the raw linseed oil to a very high temperature, which causes a polymerization reaction that increases viscosity, speeds up curing time, and allows it to dry more quickly as a film. And we'll continue applying the Tru-oil to a piece of red oak. So basically we are comparing a polymerized linseed oil finish in the Tru-oil to Armor Seal's polyurethane wiping varnish. And continuing with the first coat of Tru-oil on the pine. And the first coat of Tru-oil on the maple. After drying for 24 hours, the coats are similar in color but do look somewhat different. The Armor Seal definitely looks more glossy, as if it's already starting to build a film on the surface, and the Tru-oil looks as if it's more soaked into the wood, which is consistent with how each of these finishes work. The linseed oils generally are more penetrating than the poly resin varnishes, although polymerized linseed oil should start building a film fairly quickly as well. Here's a look from the opposite angle. So the Tru-oil is now on the left and the Armor Seal is on the right. And I'm looking at the reflection from the fluorescent lights on the ceiling. After the first coat, I used Quad Zero steel wool to remove dust nibs and slightly rough up the surface in preparation for the next coat. And I'll do this same routine for each of the boards. Then it's back to applying coat number 2 of both finishes in the same way that we applied the first coat. After 24 hours, here are the results after the second coats. There's a little more sheen with both finishes, but the Armor Seal is still a bit more glossy. Here's the opposite point of view again with the Tru-oil on the left and the Armor Seal on the right. I can already feel a tactile difference between the finishes as well. The Tru-oil feels a bit smoother and the Armor Seal almost feels a little more waxy to the touch. Not quite plastic feeling, but just a little more waxy, a little more substantial. Then we'll go straight into coat number 3 without steel wool or sanding. After coat number 3, the results look like a continuation from the last coat. Each finish looks pretty good at this point, with the Armor Seal still a little bit more glossy. Another noticeable difference is how each piece feels to the touch. The Armor Seal feeling a bit more waxy, or as some might say, plasticky to the touch, and the Tru-oil feels a bit smoother. At this point, I would normally sand just to level everything a bit, but I'm going to go ahead and apply the fourth coat just to see how things build up and progress. So here we are with coat number 4. Each finish looks great after the fourth coat. The Tru-oil is catching up, but the Armor Seal is still a bit more glossy and pronounced. Here's the opposite angle after coat number 4, the Tru-oil on the left and the Armor Seal on the right. And at this point, I want to sand each board to remove dust nibs and to level the finish a bit. I'm going to use 600 grit because I don't want to take too much of the finish off. I'm just going to show how I sanded this piece of walnut. But I did the same technique with each of the boards. The interesting thing is how each finish responded to the sanding. The armor seal was definitely more of a challenge to sand. Maybe you can see here how the Tru-oil finish was much more affected by the sandpaper. So that would indicate that the armor seal is a bit tougher, which is to be expected with the polyurethane. But let's add a few more coats and see what happens from here. So we'll apply coat number 5. Coat 5 looks really good. The sanding really helps smooth things out, and interestingly, the differences between the two finishes are not as noticeable in terms of the color and the sheen. Right now, I'm surprised at how similar these coats are looking. So let's see what another coat will do. Let's get straight to coat number 6. Coat number 6 looks great, and it's become hard to tell which finish is which I find really surprising. They still feel different to the touch. The armor seal has more of a waxy feel, and the Tru-oil feels drier or slicker. Here's another point of view showing that they could be considered completed at this point. But since I like to apply at least 3 coats after sanding, I'm going to go ahead and add a 7th coat and see how the finishes continue to build. After the 7th coat, I really can't tell a difference visually between these two finishes. They both left a nice film, they both are super glossy, and they look so similar that I can't help but wonder if the Tru-oil does contain some varnish resins. Some sources I found on the internet say that the Tru-oil includes a synthetic alkyd resin and that this is what helps it to build a protective film. But I haven't found anything from Birchwood Casey about this. If anyone has any information about that, feel free to leave it in the comments. For making decorative boxes, I generally use Tru-oil because I like how it gradually builds a sheen, and as soon as it starts to get too glossy, I'll use steel wool to knock down the gloss and give it a rubbed-in look. It also has a nice rubbed-in feel to the touch as well. It's sold in small bottles, so I can buy just as much as I need. Armor seal can be bought in a pint or a quart or a gallon, and I rarely have a need for that much finish at one time. But if I'm finishing something like a table or a bookcase, I would definitely go with the armor seal. Either way, you can't really go wrong. They are both great finishes. It takes about 30 days for these finishes to fully cure, so I might do a follow-up video with some performance and durability testing in a few weeks. And if I do, I'll leave a notice in the comments and in the description.